It seems like we've been talking about Rage quite a bit on the YouTube channel, but I think, guys, that Rage strikes me as one of those franchises that has an immense amounts of possibility and a real sense of not only creativity, but at the same time, there's just a lot of possibility with this franchise, and I think it hasn't hit in a lot of certain areas, and I think it's really hurt this franchise. One that I think that really could be a shooter in the landscape of gaming and could be something really special. So I want to talk about what happened to Rage and, what happened, with, of course, throughout the course of its history at this point, and what could that mean for the future. So let's talk about it. So guys, on the YouTube channel, we talk a lot about the future of games and the future of movies and entertainment in general, right? And so Rage is certainly no different with that. We've talked about the future of this franchise, what they can, continue doing as far as what that being like ID Software and Bethesda, what they're doing right, wrong, and what they can do different moving forward. But we also want to talk about kind of where we're at so far with this franchise. So I like to dissect kind of where we're at currently with a game and then in a series and see where, where it went wrong and what can happen moving forward that can help the franchise kind of get its ground back. So guys, this is a franchise, obviously, that has spanned, not that long, not that long as far as a period of time. I mean, it came out in 2010, or I should say 2011, technically, on the consoles and such. And then, of course, that being Rage. And then Rage 2 came out in 2019. So a number of years later is when we got that sequel. So number one, that could be, part of the problem. But number two is, guys, this is a franchise that I think suffers from a couple of things. Number one is that the developers had stated over at ID Software, they had stated before Rage 2 had even come out, they were ready to start working on Rage 3. And so that's kind of alarming to me because when you look at between, of course, the first game and the second game, you've got almost, you're pushing about 10 years there. And so it feels like you should have been totally focused on Rage 2. And we know, guys, that from Rage 2, we had some issues, of course, making, the world was just kind of boring at times. It was obviously an open world setting, but boring at times. And that's just, there really no way around it. However, I think that underneath all of the negative reception, negative reviews that came out about Rage 2, I think that there's something special there. They just didn't land on everything, and maybe their mind was in Rage 3 and what they could do, better, with that one, or what they could do to continue the franchise, even though not knowing if there was going to be another one if Rage 2 didn't sell well. And we know, guys, that Rage 2 didn't sell quite as well as, I think Bethesda was hoping. Now, here's the thing. When it comes down to sales and reception, all of these things make are a big deal when it comes to, the continuation of these franchises. So number one, I believe that Rage 2, a huge issue with it was just the simple fact that it wasn't super immersive at times. The story, even though it had some really great concepts and such, might not have landed in the best possible way. And then after the campaign is over, you have no other reason to come back to the game because, well, are you going to play the game over again? Even though it has some really interesting, some very interesting mechanics to it, it just, is there really a reason to come back to Rage 2 after beating the campaign one time? Is there any reason to come back to the game, period, after beating it? Well, not really, because there's no multiplayer and there's no, single player co-op, I should say, because single player is essentially all that we have in, in Rage 2. And unfortunately, I'm not sure why this was something that didn't necessarily, translate here from, from Rage to Rage 2. Why aren't you having multiplayer and co-op modes in Rage 2? We look at a franchise like Doom that Bethesda also, of course, is, the publisher for. They are without a doubt, I'm happy with where Doom is going, because Doom 2016 was a real surprise to a lot of people, having multiplayer co-op as well as, you know, single player. And then the story continues with Doom Eternal. And then, of course, they also had multiplayer. And look, with multiplayer, it was different. They kind of changed some things, right? They added, you know, of course, battle mode, which definitely was kind of throwing a monkey wrench into everything. But it was something unique that the community really has responded, whether it's negatively or positively. This fan base is growing. Rage could be the same type of thing, guys. This is a special franchise, in my opinion, underneath all of the bad reception, the bad reviews, underneath the, you know, some of the, you know, mechanics, or the lack of story, the, you know, some of the characters that people didn't like, the direction that it went in that people didn't like. All in all, guys, there's something special here, because look, one thing that we do know about Rage, you know, people were stating that they praised the game's combat mechanics as well as the graphics, and I agree with that. But people did criticize that the story, they criticized the characters, they criticized, you know, the direction in the story, and those were the biggest things that people, you know, were critical of. But look, at the end of the day, it comes down to when you're talking about a you know, a story like Rage and a franchise like this, I think that people would be more so, because I feel like Rage, it feels like, you know, it's kind of like that Mad Max feel, or like Fallout meets Mad Max, right? And it feels like this could be a great multiplayer experience, something really cool, be able to customize your characters, your weaponry, and things of that nature, and they just haven't done that with Rage 2. So I think that Rage 2 was a massive hit and miss, because you had a real possibility of building off of Rage. And then, you know, of course, it just didn't really land well with Rage 2. So I think ultimately, guys, what happened with Rage was, from the first game to the second game, you know, both games have had, at this point in time, have had some, you know, mediocre reviews as far as when we're talking about the story, the characters, as well as the direction. But both of them are, you know, they're getting that critical praise for the actual, you know, mechanics as well as the graphics. So there's something there. The question is they gotta, like, you know, they really have to kind of dig deep into the roots of this franchise and get those things out. And I think a great way to start with that would be the multiplayer, as well as, you know, some co-op modes, other ways to connect with the franchise, get people on board. I'm one of those people, guys, that thinks that there's something here with Rage. Like, there's something special underneath everything. This could be a special franchise, but when you only have one way in which I can connect with that franchise, then that just, you know, obviously is going to create issues for myself, because even if I say I beat the campaign, I want to play it again because it was that good, I play it one more time and it might, you know, I might try things a little bit different in the campaign, or I might try it on a harder difficulty. But after I'm done playing it, at the end of the day, I'm moving on to another game that has more to offer. And so with Rage, as long as the most important thing with these video games, AAA titles coming from these big publishers as well as developers, is having ways that you can bring your community, your fan base back to the game. Multiplayer modes absolutely do that. It's been proven time and time again. Co-op modes are a way that you can play with your friends. It works, guys, at time and time again. You look at games like Rainbow Six Quarantine are going to be specific to co-op, right? Unless something changes, of course, along the way. But co-op modes work as well. Some people think that single player needs to go the way of the dinosaur, and that's absolutely, you know, untrue. But what needs to happen, if you're going to try to get my $60 and, you know, you want to get my money, you're going to have to, as a developer or publisher, you're going to need to really entice me to not only come for, you know, come in to purchase a game for just a single player story. Because in this landscape where there's tons of games out there, there's a ton of games that want to draw my eyeballs and my, you know, my skills of playing, you know, a shooter or whatever the game might be. Whether those games are free or they're pay to play, there's so much competition. And so a game like Rage that has a lot of potential, I'm not saying that needs to be free to play, but I'm saying that it needs more ways that I can connect with the franchise. And so at the end of the day, that's what I think happened to Rage. Just not enough ways to connect, and the ways in which we could connect just didn't land extremely well. So here's hoping Rage 3, if this game ever comes out, has everything that we want in it, and they take their time. Look, you've had between 2011 to 2019 to do Rage 2. Let's say you got 2019 to close to, 2030 to get the next one out. I think you should bring it out a little bit sooner than that so people kind of remember Rage for what it is. And I think it's important that, they bring it out probably in the next, 3 to 5 years and have more modes that you can, have that we can connect with as a franchise, as a fan base. So with that being said, guys, I want to hear from all of you though. What do you guys think happened to Rage? Let me know in the comment section below. And what do you guys want to see moving forward in a Rage 3? Let me know, guys. And for more Rage content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.